How should we use rests in musical notation, in music notation, especially in Baroque style? Let's see it in this video. Welcome to this new video. I'm Richardus Musicus Practicus, and here on internet I teach the world how to compose music in the Baroque and Renaissance style with the ancient way of teaching. Now, there's a question by one of you, Paul, which is studying the suite and dance level to learn to compose a suite with all the dances, allemandes, courants, sarabandes, which wrote this question. Now I show you the question because the answer can be of public interest, so I want to make a video, even because it's shorter. It can be useful for all of you, and then it's even easier because I just have to show an example instead of writing. Now, this is the example we're talking about. First of all, the question. Paul from Australia, hello, says, "Hey Richardus, I've noticed that sometimes when there is a partial notation of one voice in a score, occasionally there are no rests notated for some bits of that part. Are there any guidelines you may have for the omission and notation of rests in voices that have partial notation in a Baroque dance written for the keyboard? I suppose including many rests would make the score very cluttered. Or are there no real rules for notating rest in these partially notated voices? Thanks for your answer." Interesting question, and the answer actually is very clear. Why? Because we could consider, let's say, three situations. Now let's come back to this point. Let's take this, which is an example by Johann Sebastian Bach, a suite, a French suite number 5. Let's take a piece, for example, the Lure. This is one of the three examples. I said, let's take three cases, two extreme cases, and then one in the middle. The Lure, which is a very French dance, which is very a keyboard dance, where we have polyphony, yeah, because in this style we always have polyphony, but it's a kind of polyphony which is present, that disappears, is present, disappears, sometimes 2, then 3 voices, then 4, then back to 1, then there is a chord. So in this case, we could consider portions of 1, 2, 3 bars where a particular style is applied. For example, at the beginning, in the first bar, we can say just 2 voices. Then, from this point, there are 3 voices, we could say. And here, the counterpoint is correct, with 3-part counterpoint, so 3 voices. And then it continues. From this point, okay, in this point there is an arpeggio, clear. And then the third voice disappears, but there's no rest, so we cannot see any rest at this point. Where is the pen? Anytime disappears the pen as well as the rest disappears without telling anything. By the way, here there's no rest to indicate the voice. So why? Because here a new section is restarting, so we have one voice, and then these notes are just an effect, a chord. Then, if you go to the next bar, here the third voice is reappearing as an imitation. Okay, an imitation of what? Pa pam pam, pa pam pam. The imitation of the very idiomatic movement section, rhythm unit of the Lure. So there's this extreme case of the, let's say, French dances, very, very, very French dances in the style brisé, the so-called style brisé, the style which is common to the lute. So imagine the lute. In the lute, you perceive when the string is plucked. Okay, it's not on the organ. Indeed, the style brisé can work on the organ, but you have to pay very attention because on the organ the sound is sustained. On the harpsichord, on the other hand, you can have the same effect of the lute. So that's why we could do this. Then, this is an extreme case where you don't care so much about this. Let's say you don't care so much about how many voices you have. You pass from 3 to 1. Let's say that if you want to join here, you should put the rest, at least this point. Let's say that here, if we have this Lure, the Lure, how does it work? How does the rhythm and the beat works in the Lure? You'll study it in the all the lessons is the chapter about the lures, you'll see that in the lure we have a half note here and another half note here, the 2 beats of the lure. If you want to rejoin in the second half of the lure, the rule could be, okay, put at least a rest on the downbeat when the new beat, in this case the beat is the with a half note with a dotted note, starts, and so at least a rest from the second half of the bar. Okay, then there is the other extreme case, which is one more thing. In this case, you can see that when we have an arpeggio like here, you know, you could say we have 1, 2, 3, 4 voices. No, it's just an arpeggio. It's the contrary thing. So we are not putting rests. We are just putting notes, but without having a correct 4 voice writing, because it doesn't matter. Even here, well, what about what's happening here? If this is the melody, pa-pum pom, because it's a modification of pa-pum pom, ta-tan-tan, then ta-tan ton, ta-tan ton. So as you can see, it's an effect. So yes, we can do this. Then the other extreme is the fugue. The last giga here, or giga, is a fugue, Italian giga actually. That's an Italian giga which is analyzed in the giga level. Here, here we have the fugue, and so as you can see, when the second voice is going to appear, there's the rest from the beginning of the bar. Now, from this point, there's the correct rest from the beginning of the bar. So let's say that in a fugue, you should be very precise, because you have 3 voices. Here you don't have 3, you don't have 4, you don't have 5 voices, you don't have 2 voices, you have 3 voices. So when one voice is stopping, you can put a rest. Indeed, notice here Bach is writing a rest. This can be, let's say, overpass, can be quite different in the very last cadence, because if you have like an effect, because at the end is a keyboard fugue, you can put this, but it's just an effect and usually happens at the end of a fugue, or if you want a fantasia style at the end of a fugue, this could happen. Then we can say we have a middle style. What do I mean in a middle style? So we have the 2 extremes. On one side, we have the French style, the French style brisé, where you make, let's say, a mess of voices. Then we have the very strict fugue style. And then something in the middle can be what we can see here, for example, in this courant, which is corrente, where we have 2 voices at the end, as you can see, because this corrente is a corrente for 2 voices. We have sometimes some arpeggios, but you won't write any rest after the arpeggio, the notes of the arpeggio. There's no a 3rd voice here, as you can see. Then it continues with 2 voices, because one of the main aspects of the Italian corrente, and that's an Italian corrente, that's not a French courant, is that it generally is it's a 2 voice composition. But sometimes we may have some bars like this, where we have, let's say, 1 voice, so 1 beat, 2 beats, and the 3rd beat, and we have the rest. Then there is 1, 2, and 3, and in the bass 1. And where is all the other going? We cannot say that melodically this voice, this G, is moving to D. It's not correct. It's a descending arpeggio, but it's an effect. So as you can see, this is something which is put in a specific context, in a specific bar, with a beginning and a closing. So yes, the rule is, if you're writing, if we want to set some general rules, if you're writing a fugue or something with 3 clear voices, if you write a trio sonata, you have to be very precise with the 3 voices. 2, if you're writing something in the style brisé, very French style, like the lure or a sarabande or the allemande, you can, the allemande, like in the examples where you put the comment in the lesson about the allemande, feel free to follow the beat, the scan of the beats. And if you're doing the other dances like a courant or corrente or bourrées, a gavotte, if you need some section where you want to create effect on the keyboard, making adding one more voice, adding two more voices, or an arpeggio, just contextualize the beat in that specific context. This is how you should proceed. Let's see an example, for example, from gavotte. Okay, this is a gavotte, which, as you can see, which starts with like a three-part gavotte. Where we have rests in the middle voice where we need it. Then it passes in the second section, something strange is happening, because here we have three voices, four, but there's an arpeggio, then two voices, then we have this, to this, and to this. There are rests here in the middle. As you can see, this is the middle voice. Then it continues with three voices. Now only two voices, but we don't have any rest in the for the middle voice, because we could say that this B continues here. Then this voice is moving down, and we have a section with three voices, two voices. The following was starting here. Then from this point, a third voice rejoins in the second part, on the second beat, and then it continues with three voices. Then we don't have a rest. So in this case, for example, we have two main voices, one at the top, one in the middle, and sometimes a middle voice, as you can see, when it's clear and the scansion even here is based on the beat of the dance, we don't have to put any rest. When, on the other hand, something is happening between one beat and the following beat of the bar, it's very wise to put a rest. So this is the answer to your very interesting question, because it's something actually I haven't thought to consider, and that's why I want to make a video. So now all of you that are studying suite and dances, so how to compose a suite with all the dances and all the other musici, can see these three categories. Very quick summary. We can have a lot of freedom in with French style, brisé style, still brisé dances like allemande, lourd, and sarabande. Then we can have the opposite case, where we have to be very strict with the voices, with the rest, because we have, for example, a fugue, so, or a two-part composition. So we need to be very precise with the number of the voices, or a trio sonata, which is explicitly written and conceived for three voices. And then the other situations in the middle. But in all of these cases, consider the scan of the beat. And so, see you in the next video. And if you want to learn to compose a suite with all its Baroque dances, discover the Suite and Dance level of the Musicus Practicus Academy, Baroque Path number 3. Every self-respecting Baroque composer wrote at least one suite with their own dances. Think of Bach's French suites, Handel's suite, or harpsichord partitas by other great composers. Composing a suite is a true challenge. Each dance has its own rhythms, phrasing, style, and unique character. And if you don't study how each one works, you risk writing an allemande that sounds like a gavotte, a French courante that feels like a sarabande, or a minuet that turns into a passe-pied. No, no, no. What you need is structure, method, and the right knowledge. That's why I created an entire level on the Musicus Practicus Baroque path dedicated to composing a complete Baroque suite with all its dances. The dances you'll study include allemande, sarabande, minuet, gavotte, bourrées, French courante, Italian corrente, passe-pied, lourd, French jig, and Italian giga. Each dance is introduced in a carefully structured didactical order, and for every one of them I've designed a target learning method, the most effective one I've used and I use in my one-to-one lessons, which has helped students achieve faster and more solid results. First, we studied the compositional elements of each dance: rhythm, phrasing, and structure. Then we analyzed many real examples from different composers so you can learn directly from them and be inspired by their work. Finally, the active part. We compose 2 full suites together, writing 2 dances for each type, one in B flat major and the other one in B minor, to explore the expressive richness of both major and minor modes. All of these and much more in the 3rd level of the Musicus Practicus Baroque path, Suite and Dances. Click the link to download the free ebook on Suite and Dances and to explore the full content. Then get started with the free levels you can find on the Musicus Practicus Academy free. Then choose the complete path that suits you best and get ready to compose your Baroque suite as if you had lived in the 18th century.